Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Authentically Feminine podcast. My name is Daria, and I am your host. Today, I have something very special to share with you. It's a really interesting story, and it's a way that you can overcome that feeling of self-doubt, the feelings of fear, the feelings of procrastination. And I'm going to share something with you called the moment of nothing that you can use in order to get over a fear, in order to set a boundary, in order to just show up in a way that is going to make you feel proud of yourself. So a couple of months ago, I decided to go live on Instagram. Now, this was going to be my very first Instagram live, and I was super nervous about it, but I thought, okay, I need to do it, right? I've never done it. It's something new. It's something that I need to try. And even though I work with clients all the time, I do Zoom calls, I coach clients, I create reels, I create videos, this was still something that was terrifying for me because it almost felt like I was going to be public speaking. But I thought, okay, I need to do it. So I prepared some notes. I came up with the topic. I had everything ready. And what ends up happening is a couple of weeks go by because I'm just procrastinating. I did not want to do it. I was afraid. In my mind, I was thinking, all right, well, what if I mess up? How am I going to say it? What am I going to say? What if nobody shows up, right? All the fears and all the doubts came creeping in. And I had these, really high expectations for how my very first Instagram live should go. And so because of that, I procrastinated and I waited a couple of weeks and I just kind of let my notes sit there, and I just didn't have a plan for when I'm actually going to do it. And of course, this is, my perfectionist side, right? It's either perfect or nothing. This is a big area that I've been working on for a long time now. So I made my notes, and a few weeks went by, and my inner critic is telling me, you're not going to do it. You're too scared. You're going to mess up. All of those things that our inner critic tends to tell us when we want to do something, but we are afraid. But on the other hand, there was another part of me that really wanted to do it. I really wanted to do the live because I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to push myself. And I knew that doing that was going to make me feel better. And I started thinking about it, and I realized that there's always two sides of us. There is the inner critic, which is the devil on the shoulder. And then there's the angel, right? There's the inner cheerleader. And they're both always there. And it's really our decision who we choose to listen to. Because your inner critic is the one that is going to try to pull you back because it wants to keep you safe. So your inner critic is the one that's going to say, you can't do it. Oh, you're going to mess it up. Oh, what do you know? All the false limiting beliefs are going to come up when you're listening to the inner critic. And it wants to keep you safe and comfortable and in your comfort zone where everything is familiar and everything is safe. If you stay in your comfort zone, things end up getting really, really dull. So that's one part of you. It's that inner critic. And there's the other part of you, which is your inner cheerleader. And your inner cheerleader is the one that's going to say things like, you can do this. You've done difficult things before. You are knowledgeable. You are smart. You are so capable. That is the inner cheerleader. And those two parts of us are always going to be there. And whenever we have to make a difficult decision or whenever we're afraid to do something, we always have a choice as to who to listen to, the inner critic or the inner cheerleader. And so I went back and forth between listening to my inner cheerleader that said, you can do this, do the live, you've done things, you coach clients, you're on camera, you do this stuff all the time, you'll be fine. I kept oscillating between that and my inner critic that said, you're not going to do it anyway, just forget it, just give up. And about a month later, after I made those notes and I had the idea to go live on Instagram, my daughter was sleeping, I put her for her nap. I decided, okay, I'm going to do the live today. But it was a very sort of loose decision. It was maybe we'll see how I feel. But anyway, I started getting ready. I put some makeup on, and I was listening to a podcast episode that really motivated me that day about, being productive, getting things done, and growing into your best self. And I thought, okay, my inner cheerleader is giving me tough love and telling me, you need to do this. Put your makeup on. Baby girl is sleeping. Go do the live now. You have the notes. Everything's ready. Do it now. You need to do this in order to grow, in order to get out of your comfort zone. That is what my inner cheerleader is telling me. So I set everything up. I set up my phone. I set up my notes. I set up the lighting. And once I was really ready to do it, the inner critic comes up again and starts telling me, you know what, you're not actually going to do it. Yeah, you've prepared and you've set all this stuff up, but you're not really going to do it. Come on, let's be honest here. And I'm sitting here and this is what's happening in my mind, the battle that's going on in my mind, okay? Maybe some of you can relate to this. But I had everything set up. I had my phone set up and I'm sitting there and I stared at the live button, the go live button, for, I kid you not, like 3 minutes straight. And it felt like such a long time. And I sat there and I stared at the button. And then without thinking, I just clicked. I just pressed it. I pressed the live button and I'm like, all right, there's no going back now. There's no going back now. And I sat there. I waited for people to show up. And I was super nervous in the beginning. But once I got into it, it became easier. It became like, it was as if I was just talking to a coaching client over Zoom, right? It was like as if I was just filming a reel. And it wasn't perfect, but it went smoothly. And I did it. That was the most important thing. And so what happened in that moment where I pressed the live button is I waited for the moment where I literally silenced my mind. Like the inner critic is there, chattering away, telling me I can't do it. And I waited for a split second where my mind wasn't thinking. My body just took over. I just pressed the live button and I was like, okay, I pressed it. There's no going back. And I did it. And it felt so good to have done that, to have overcome that thing that I was so afraid to do. And there was nothing more powerful than overcoming a fear that you have, because your confidence just skyrockets and you show yourself that you can do it, that you can do difficult things. You don't have to listen to that inner critic. And it's just such an amazing feeling. And so the hack is using what I call the moment of nothing, which is what I did. It is when I sat there, I stared at the live button for 3 minutes, and I'm listening to my inner critic chattering away this whole time, telling me, you're not really going to press the button, you're not going to do it. And I waited for the split second when my mind was still. And that was the moment of nothing. And I pressed it. And my body took over. My finger just pressed the live button. And I did it. And the funny thing is, when I think back, I have used this technique without actually realizing it in the past. So when I was about 10 years old, my parents used to send me to summer camp. And at one of those camps, we took a trip for a couple of days we went camping. So it was out in nature. It was like in the wilderness. You know, we slept in tents. We took canoes out on the water and I loved it. And so on this trip, we took our canoes out to like a lake and there were 2 cliffs there that all the kids were diving off. Now, one of the cliffs was really small. Everybody was jumping into the water off the cliff. The other cliff was higher. Now, I don't remember how many stories it was because even now, like, you know, I was a kid, so it seemed scarier than it probably would seem now. But even though I am afraid of heights now. Anyways, so the second cliff was much, much higher. And it was so high that not all the kids were jumping off of it. And so I really wanted to jump off the cliff into the water, but I was really, really scared. And so I told myself, okay, I'm going to go climb up there and I'm going to decide once I get there. Kids that were more brave, they were just diving in. And I climbed up there and I'm standing on the top of this cliff and I'm looking down and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so scary. I'm not going to do it. There is no way. And at the time, my inner critic was telling me, you can't do this. Just climb back down. It's too high. And I just remember that I concentrated on the water below for, I don't know, a good minute or something like that. I concentrated. I looked down and I literally just pushed myself off. I jumped in. It was scary. I was like, I was, screaming the whole way down, dove into the water. It was so exhilarating, so much fun. And then I came out and I was like, yeah. And I was just so proud of myself. Even then at 10 years old, I realized that I was using that moment of nothing, the moment where the inner critic was just still for 1 second and my body just did the work. I wasn't thinking, I just pushed myself off. And so I guess the reason that that memory is so vivid in my mind is because I felt so good about overcoming that fear. And that's the exact same thing that I did when I decided to go on Instagram Live. And so when you do scary things, it really boosts your confidence and you grow. And every time you do something scary and you overcome it, you grow and you grow and you grow and you grow. And it is just the best feeling ever. When I started coaching clients, the very first time I started coaching clients, even the idea of actually coaching clients was so scary to me. I was like, there's no way I'm going to do this. And I was charging like less than $100 per hour for a coaching session, which is, that's unheard of in the coaching industry. But I was so terrified. And even though I collected, years of knowledge, I wrote a book, I had all this information, I had the people skills, the empathy, I was so ready to help. Like I had all of this under my belt. I was terrified. I spent hours preparing. And once I did it, I thought, oh my goodness, I can do this. I can do this. And again, my confidence just skyrocketed. And now, of course, I coach clients all the time. I heard this quote recently that a lot of the time we are afraid of something, not because we can't do it, but because it's new. And we have to remember that our body, our nervous system, and, all parts of us are trying to keep us safe. That is why the inner critic always shows up and says, don't do it. It's not safe. Just stay where you are. It's comfortable here. You'll be good here. This is why that happens. But the truth is that all growth is on the other side of that. And if you are afraid of something, chances are you need to do it. You need to do it. And once you do it and you overcome it, it is the best feeling in the world. That is where your growth actually happens. Because you're proving to yourself that you can do hard things. And in the future, what happens is something difficult comes up that you want to do, and you tell yourself, oh, but I've done hard things in the past. I've done difficult things in the past. Therefore, I can do this. I can do something difficult again. But if you always stick to the easy way out and you never push yourself, then there's always going to be a part of you that's going to believe that you cannot do hard things because you've always just done the easy things, right? So it's really important to push yourself sometimes. And so if you're in a situation where you want to do something difficult, like maybe you want to say something to somebody, maybe you want to set a boundary with somebody, maybe you want to try something that you're afraid of, right? Try something physically. Maybe you have a business and you want to take it to the next level and you want to do something that's new for you. When you want to do something that is new, ask yourself, who is making the decision right now? Is my inner critic making the decision, or is my inner cheerleader making the decision? And if it's your inner critic, then you know that it is just a safety mechanism. And you need to go the other direction. You need to listen to the inner cheerleader. And so if you want to try this technique that I call the moment of nothing, here's how you do it. Number one, decide what it is that you want to do. So have a clear intention, a clear action step. Maybe it's that you want to confront somebody, set a boundary with somebody, a family member, a friend. Maybe you want to say no to somebody and you've been afraid to do this. Maybe you want to dive off a cliff like I did. Maybe you want to stand up for yourself in a situation that has been difficult in the past. Maybe you want to do something that feels authentic to you, but that goes against what other people think. Decide on what it is that you want to do and come up with the clear action step. Next, set up the moment. Set up the moment and say, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm going to do this right now. And the third step is catch the moment of nothing, the moment where you're not thinking, where your body makes the decision before your mind has a chance to. Just catch that moment where you just blurt out the thing that you want to say. Catch that split second of a moment and just do it without thinking. Just do it. It's almost like doing something impulsively, but with intention, right? Because you have the intention to do something, you know what you want to do, or you know what you want to say, and you have set up the moment, you know what's going to happen now, and then you act impulsively. You just push it out of yourself. You just push yourself off the cliff into the water, right? So that is how you use the moment of nothing in order to get over your fears. And the only way to truly get over your fears is to face them. That is really the only way. I love my comfort zone. Love my comfort zone. I've always had a difficult time setting boundaries with others, saying no, and being my authentic self. But when you do this, when you can step out of yourself and you do the thing that scares you, the reward is 1,000 times greater. A moment of discomfort for endless growth and endless happiness. And you are going to feel like you have so much more respect for yourself when you make a decision that you want to do, but you're afraid to do. So that's all I have for you today. I really hope that this episode was helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a rating, leave me a comment, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. If you're on YouTube, leave me a comment below. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I will see you next time on the Authentically Feminine podcast.